story changed about 7 times. Too many hens in the hen house. If we were to take off topic, other than kind of let's see. The light suit is nice. The light suit is It's 3 separate cases, all done in one day. Yesterday, 3 different prosecuting agencies. So we're going to do it all in one shot. It's 1, 2, 3. Questions immediately. So we're going to announce all 3. You know, we're going to say something to us about it, and then we're going to take topics on all 3. This is with triple play. The cloud order manager. Two cases to the right. This one is a firearms trafficking.
How are you?
Do it. Need a sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We good? All right.
Yeah, so it's 3 separate takedowns, 3 separate prosecuting agencies, Eastern, Southern, and Kings County. ATF is involved in 2, so they'll be here. The context of this is we did this all in one day, 3 major operations, successful in one day. Two of these organizations are responsible for a lot of the violence that was happening.
One more time. 1, 2,
Everything's
3, 4, 5,
that case
6,
over there,
7,
it's a
8.
it's like a conspiracy
Everybody's good?
firearm sale case. It's pretty interesting. We know guys in Virginia selling guns. We connected via social media. We actually recovered a couple of the guns he was posting on social media in Brooklyn, like after a shots fired job or something like that. So it's like, what are you doing? The drugs and guns you see on the table are associated with
Testing 1, 2, testing.
that cloud board right
Testing 1, 2, testing.
Yeah, we'll send it out digitally, yeah.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
We had a little, of course, yeah, nothing's going on.
Testing 1, 2.
Temper's right there.
Testing 1, 2.
We'll make sure that you don't.
Should be good now, right? Okay.
With a key. see the fucking post on it. You guys That's a great question. That's a great question. It's collaborative between prosecutors and usually there's something that triggers it during like the wire. Some of them will just whatever. Steve's gonna. I don't see anything up on the screens here, Diego. Yeah. Just came down. Yes.
Good morning, folks. Just give a little heads up of what we're doing and how we're doing it. Maybe it'll go a little smoother. We're here to talk about 3 takedowns that happened in like the last 24 hours. We've taken over 40 violent subjects, gang subjects off the streets of New York in the last 24 hours. Chief Shea will give you the brief on them. The order will be, the first one he's going to talk about is Operation Wildside. We're going to be working from this side to this side as he goes through them. So it's going to be Operation Wildside from Brooklyn North, gun violence suppression. Then Operation Triple Play, also Brooklyn North detectives, and then Operation Southern Steel, which is East Flatbush in Brooklyn South. Our partners are going to be here from the ATF and Kings County DA's office here with us. We'll take some Q&A after each case. Because they're kind of specific to the cases, so we'll do a quick Q&A after each case, and then at the end we'll do a Q&A. We are going to stay on topic. There will be no off-topic questions afterwards. The case officers will be off to my right here. Afterwards, if you want to speak to the chiefs and their people and get a little flavor for the case officers, you could do that also. Okay? So we'll be ready in about 5. Thank you.
Are you gonna get any more of those?
Channel 7 here? This is Channel 7?
Okay, good afternoon. Well, good morning, everyone. It seems like just a couple days ago we were in the same room talking about a violent gang case coming down in the Bronx dealing with overdose deaths. Let's take a trip to the other side of the city now. We talk about 3 cases that came down yesterday in New York City, all centered in Brooklyn. Common denominators with these cases, as I'll introduce shortly, the 3 chiefs that are responsible for overseeing these cases. You're going to see repeat offenders. You're going to see multiple firearm incidents, both prior shooting incident involvement or repeat possession of firearms. And this is at the heart of what we've been talking about for the last couple of years here in New York City. You're looking at the front lines of precision policing right here. In the corner, the men and women that really conducted the work on the ground, making the streets of Brooklyn safer for all. So just some introductions. I have Sean Benedict from the ATF. I have Mark Feldman from the Kings County DA's office, and as always, it's a pleasure to see our very own Public Safety Committee Chair from the City Council. So Donovan, thank you for coming out today. I'm going to turn it over to talk about the first case, and it's going to be Chief Essick from the Gun Violence Suppression Division leading us through this case, and then we'll have some questions.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Chief Shea. My name's Assistant Chief James Essick. I'm the Commanding Officer of the Gun Violence Suppression Division. I'd just like to introduce some of the members of my team. My Executive Officer, Inspector Richard Green. The Commanding Officer who ran this case, Captain Tom Pasolo. The 2 case supervisors, Sergeant Danny Nicoletti, Sergeant Ben Nelson. And I'd like to stand up here, the case officer, Detective James Miles, of the Gun Violence Suppression Division. Jimmy did a great job on this. Also,
I think Jimmy wanted you up here.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, Operation Wildside, on Wednesday, June 6th, in the early morning hours, members of the Gun Violence Suppression Division, along with their federal partners in the ATF, executed 15 arrest warrants and 4 search warrants against the violent narcotics crew known as the Boss Gang. As of today, all 15 members are in custody. This investigation began by the Gun Violence Suppression Division in July of 2017. The Boss crew, which is a subset of the Bloods Gang, primarily operated their narcotics trafficking in the Bedford-Stuyvesant area of Brooklyn in the confines of the 8-1 precinct. They predominantly range in age between 23 years and 28 years of age. During this investigation, numerous confidential as well as undercover buys of crack cocaine were conducted into subjects, and working with our partners in the ATF and the United States District Attorney's Office, and through various investigative means, we were quickly able to ID and implicate numerous others in narcotics trade as well as criminal acts. A total of 8 kilos are being charged against these defendants. In addition to the narcotics dealing, these subjects were involved in numerous violent acts and crimes, including 5 non-fatal shootings, 11 robberies, 2 reckless endangerments, 1 menacing, and 12 possessions of illegal firearms. The 15 defendants are being charged with conspiracy to distribute narcotics, as well as possession and using a firearm during a narcotics transaction. And they face strict federal prosecution. This case shows the extraordinary cooperation between the NYPD, ATF, and the Southern District of New York. It is also our mandate in the Gun Violence Suppression Division in the NYPD. We will relentlessly identify and investigate gun offenders and those who use firearms in New York City, and we will arrest and prosecute them to the fullest extent. Once again, I'd like to thank Jimmy Miles for his case, the Gun Violence Suppression Division, and I'd like to, Sean Benedict from the ATF, the special agent in charge, I'd like to have him come up and say a few words. He was our federal partner in this and did a great job.
Good morning, everybody. It's Sean Benedict with the ATF. On behalf of ATF, I'd like to thank the law enforcement agencies that partnered on this investigation. This case was a great collaborative effort between NYPD and ATF to do some community-based policing, precision policing, frontline, all the things that we need to do in the city just took place during this investigation. Also like to thank the HSI who participates on the Joint Firearms Task Force for helping out. ATF and the Department of Justice remains committed to protecting the public. We work with state, local, and federal partners to keep the streets free from individuals and organizations that perpetrate violent crime. We stand firm with our partners at NYPD and HSI in our commitment to serve the great citizens of New York City. We'll continue to work every day and night to make the streets safer and free from illegal narcotics and the violent predators that peddle them. I appreciate the partnership, Chief. Thank you.
We'll take a question or two on this specific case. There will be an opportunity afterwards for a last round of questions, but specific to Operation Wildside, if you have any questions, am I right?
What was recovered here? What can you describe the?
Sure, I'll pass it back to Chief Jimmy Essick in a minute to just summarize what was recovered. But let me just say again, you're going to hear from 3 cases. Here you had a case nearly a year in length, 15 subjects arrested. I believe the 3rd case you're going to hear about today, again, about a year in length, 5 subjects arrested. And then the middle one was roughly 26, 27 subjects arrested. Conference after conference, that's the question I get. How do you keep crime down as you're at a 25-year low in arrests? How do you drop 150,000 arrests? This is exactly how we do it. Mark is tired of me calling him at the Kings County DA's office. The partnership with Sean and other federal partners, the collaboration, the coming together, the working together, the precision of identifying single individuals, working on it for 12 months, and coming away with a case where extracted out of that community is 4, 5, 10 individuals that, as Jimmy outlined to you, when he talks about reckless endangerment charges, that's reckless endangerment, somebody shooting a gun on the streets of Brooklyn. So again, to the detective, I really can't say enough. Tremendous work. Jimmy, do you want to just summarize what we recovered?
Yeah, during this course of investigation, 700 grams of crack cocaine and 2 firearms. Not spread out throughout Brooklyn. No, it was spread out throughout Brooklyn, but they predominantly operated out of the 8-1 precinct, the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn.
Anybody else? So we'll move on to the next case.
Thank you.
Operation Triple Play.
All right, not moving far in Brooklyn, but I'm going to introduce to my left Chief Mike Kemper, the investigative chief for Brooklyn North. With them is the newly promoted chief now, Miguel Iglesias.
Good afternoon. If I may, I'll introduce my team from Brooklyn North. To my left is Deputy Chief Miguel Iglesias, and to echo Chief Shea, what he just said, congratulations to Miguel. He was recently promoted to his current rank just a couple of days ago in this building. So congratulations, Miguel. Captain Craig Edelman, he's the commanding officer of Brooklyn North Gang. Where's Craig? And the 2 case detectives with Operation Triple Play, Detective Paul Molinaro and Police Officer Michael Lassen. I'll follow in Chief Essick's footsteps if you guys want to come up and stand over here. Just really, really nice work with this case. They should be recognized for what they've done. So yesterday, personnel assigned to Detective Borough Brooklyn North's gang squad took down a long-term case called Operation Triple Play. It was a long-term case that's being prosecuted by the Kings County District Attorney's Office. Operation Triple Play began in July of 2017 and focused on members of the Wave Gang, subsequent to several acts of violence in and around the Sethlow, Langston Hughes, and Van Dyke housing developments in Brownsville, Brooklyn. This case illustrates the NYPD's commitment to precision policing by focusing our efforts on members of society who commit acts of violence. Today, the Wave Gang, a violent group of individuals who have been plaguing Brownsville, Brooklyn, by committing acts of violence and selling narcotics, are essentially dismantled. We hope the residents of Brownsville, Brooklyn reap the benefits of living in a safer environment as these gang members face justice for the crimes they committed. Like I mentioned, Operation Triple Play being prosecuted by the Kings County DA's office consisted of 26 subjects, all of which have been recently pre-indicted by a Brooklyn grand jury for the following charges: firearms offenses, conspiracy to distribute narcotics, and the sale and possession of controlled substances, primarily crack cocaine, heroin, and Oxycontin. To paint a picture of the subjects included in this case, it should be noted that the overwhelming majority of them have prior felony arrests, including 2 of our subjects have prior arrests for murder. 13 of our subjects, or just about half of them, have prior arrests for possession of firearm, and 6 of our subjects are on parole or probation. As I mentioned, the Brooklyn North Gang Squad led this investigation. Recovered and seized since this case began, and I'd like to make mention that the display in front of us right here is some proceeds, some evidence recovered during this case. This is all recovered from Operation Triple Play. So recovered was a significant amount of narcotics consisting of over 5 kilos of cocaine, along with some heroin, marijuana, and Oxycontin. Additionally, 8 firearms have been recovered during this case. 6 of the 8 are displayed on this table. I'd like to make mention that although yesterday was takedown day for Operation Triple Play, I'd like to mention that this case is still active and additional arrests are expected. I would also like to mention that other cases just like this, involving other violent gang members all throughout Brooklyn, are active right now as well. So in closing, I'd just like to again to acknowledge and thank all the personnel from the Brooklyn North Gang Squad for all they have done with this case, and I'd also like to thank our partners in the Kings County District Attorney's Office. Mark Feldman is here. Thank you and your team for all they do, not with just this case, but everything you do with us. Thank you.
Any questions?
What is the triple play? What exactly does this do?
That's a good question. The Triple Play, the triple is for the 3 housing developments. The 3 housing developments being Cethlo, Langston Hughes, and Van Dyke. They're all 3 of those housing developments are in Brownsville, and they're in very close proximity to each other.
Do they have operations in an apartment, or they're just hanging out in the playground selling? What do they do?
Yeah, they just sold and distributed narcotics. They also committed acts of violence, both indoors and outdoors. Some of the drug dealing occurred inside apartments, inside buildings, and some of it occurred out in the street.
Can you talk about the 26 arrests? Can you talk about the process of getting arrest warrants for them? Obviously, it wasn't just that day. It was a year-long case. Can you talk about that process?
So, as I mentioned, these are pre-indictments. So this was a case that began in July of last year, so we're about 11 months into it. The members over here in the gang squad, working with their counterparts in the district attorney's office, worked very hard in building a prosecutable case. Once both parties, being the DA's office and us, were satisfied that we were in a good position, we presented all the evidence to a grand jury, which was done, and we secured indictments. So out of the 26, 23 of them have been are in custody. 3 are outstanding right now.
Chief, I missed your meeting, number 1. And number 2, was there a lot of neighborhood communication on this? In other words, were people giving you guys leads, or how did this develop?
Yeah, so my name is Deputy Chief Michael Kemper. K-E-M-P like Peter, E-R. Cases like this are very complex to put together. I'm not going to go into all the particulars. The case is active. Again, I do foresee more arrests being made. This case is far from over, but the complexities are deep. As far as working with community, certainly yes, we did have cooperation from the community, and like I mentioned, I'm very optimistic that the community members that live in and around these areas in Brownsville are going to reap some very, very good benefits moving forward with these arrests. It was. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
So the gang is actually out of business?
The gang is hit, and the best way to describe it, they're hit and they're going down. It's our goal right now to put an end to the Wave Gang. For me to stand here right now and say the Wave Gang is 100% dismantled, I wouldn't be painting an accurate picture. I can say that they are seriously hurt, and this investigation, as I mentioned now, I think a couple of times, is not over. We are continuing.
Okay, we'll move on to Southern Steel.
Just before I hit Southern Steel, a couple follow-ups in terms of the community involvement of this case, and this isn't this case, but in general. Community is absolutely involved, and we rely on the community, whether it's 911 calls, 311 calls. How does this blend into our neighborhood policing philosophy, where information is coming from people that live in these developments? And you've heard me say before, disproportionate amount of our violence in New York City is borne by the residents in New York City housing. 20% of our shootings year after year, and they're at the lowest point right now. But 20% number is constant, and really some great work here to try to mitigate this violence in this particular part of Brownsville. In terms of the gang being out of business, we talked about precision policing. We talked about dropping the number of arrests in New York City. We talk about, which I didn't say today here, alternatives to incarceration. When you talk about ceasefire, when you talk about trying to divert kids out of the criminal justice system, I guarantee that we could have arrested 3 times the number of people that we arrested in this gang. And we see that with every gang takedown that you will hear about. This is decisions made, working with the prosecutors, working with the evidence that we have, working with the individuals that we have. What do we know about this individual? He's 15 years old. He's 35 years old. He's on parole. He's already been in and out of the system multiple times. He's at the scene of 5 shootings. All of this data is compiled, processed, and we make strategic decisions about how we prosecute cases in New York City. It's not by accident that we went under 1,000 shootings first time. Then we went under 800 shootings last year. Now we're down 6% in shootings this year on top of that, at the same time that we're at lows in arrests. So this is all how we operate. I'm going to introduce now, on my right, he's known to go on and talk for a while, so we're going to have to give him a quick hook if it comes to that. But really a driving force of some of the success we've had in Brooklyn South the last couple of years. Deputy Chief Vinny DiDonato to talk about the last case.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Chief Shea. Good afternoon, Deputy Chief Vincent DiDonato, Commanding Officer, Brooklyn South Detectives. First of all, I just want to introduce the team that put this together. The Commanding Officer, I'd like to have him up here, Commanding Officer, Brooklyn South Gang, Anthony Guagdano, Captain Anthony Guagdano. I have Lieutenant Brian Caltabiano and Sergeant Alex. Alex, are you here? Okay. Alex Smergy. I also have my federal partner up here, Sean Benedict. This was a joint operation between NYPD and our great partners in the ATF. And I'd also like to acknowledge NYPD's Intel Cyber Unit that assisted on this thing, social media. This is a social media type of investigation. Being prosecuted by Drew Roll of the Eastern District in New York, our federal partners. So I'd like to thank everybody that's involved in this case. The case is still ongoing. This case commenced approximately about a year ago. It's involving members of a gun trafficking conspiracy that used straw gun buyers to purchase more than 40 firearms from dealers in Virginia between April 2017 and May 2018. Right now we have 5 individuals that we have arrest indictments for, 3 of them in custody. We're still looking for 2 others. At the head of this operation is a gentleman by the name of Joseph Johnson. He's a gang member, and he's also has residences up here in the 6-7 precinct in East Flatbush, as well as in Virginia. So the strut of this investigation is based upon the following. It's a gun trafficking operation run by Johnson, and what he would do is he would enlist straw purchases that would go to the gun stores down in Virginia, buy guns, fill out 4473s, which is Agent Benedict can get into. Those are the federal firearm purchases. They would lie on those forms. They would turn them over to Johnson. Johnson would post them on social media, as you can see on the board over here to my left, I believe. You'll see the pictures of him posting the guns to social media, basically advertising. He's advertising for guns on social media. People see those advertisements. They contact him, and he comes up here and he does the gun sale. At this point, we recovered 7 of these firearms. 3 of the firearms were recovered from in Brooklyn, 1 in the 7.3, 6 in 1 in the 8.1, and 1 in the 6-7. There's approximately, investigations still continue to identify where these other guns that he had purchased and using the straw purchases to see where they ended up with. But this is what we do every day. We work together with our community, work together with our detectives and our federal partners to precision and target people that we see, whether it be social media or information that we receive from our people in the community, to target these kind of people. That's it. Any questions? I'm sorry.
7.
Okay, yeah.
7 guns.
7 guns. Yeah. 3.
So 3.
Yeah.
Sure. So 3 guns were recovered on persons arrested by the NYPD in Brooklyn and in the Bronx. 1 was in Brownsville, 1 was in East Flatbush, and 1 was in the Bronx. Okay, there was other firearms that were recovered during this operation in Virginia. So a total of 7 firearms were recovered at this time. There's many more firearms that were purchased by this group, but we're in the process of still investigating all those other firearms.
Sean, you want to speak to the 4473s or anything like that, or you could? Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, Joseph Johnson has 21 prior arrests and also a conviction for possession of an assault weapon. Also, his second in command, Tyshawn Stevens, he was also a prior convicted felon. They're being charged with possession as a felon.
Just a quick comment. I want to introduce James Lazinski. He's my intelligence supervisor. He showed incredible tenacity in bringing this case together. What's important about this case is it came out of Virginia, and Virginia is a top source state for illegal firearms that are recovered in New York City. And this case started with, gun recoveries and gun collars. And because of the partnerships we have with NYPD in the intelligence aspect of looking at gun recoveries, gun traces, it led us down to Virginia. And our sister field division, Washington Field Division, which covers Virginia, their assistance in bringing this case together was monumental as well, because that's where the straw purchasing takes place, right? These folks go in, they don't have criminal records, they fill out the ATF form 4473, which asks a series of questions, and one of the questions is this gun for you? And it's a lie, because they leave that gun store and they give it to somebody else who brings it up here and puts it in the hands of shooters. And so we have thousands of guns that continue to come into New York City every year, and that's where the partnership with NYPD takes place. And we try to go after every case with a lot of vigor and tenacity, and James here and his team did an excellent job. So, thanks.
Okay, we'll take 1 or 2 more questions on topic, and then we'll wrap it up. Right.
So you said social media. I mean, was this guy advertising on like Facebook or Snapchat, and what was he saying? Come buy a gun. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what this would look like.
Sure. So this particular individual was advertising on Facebook. All right. He did through private messaging. You can see at one of the boards there, he refers to the products as he's selling it as war kits. All right. That's a direct quote. So you can see right there on the board the picture he sends, and he refers to that as a war kit. All right, for sale. Go ahead.
The investigation timeline for all 3 were different. Can you explain how they all came to be one day, 3 takedowns?
That, forgive me, my voice is sinus season. That's not that out of the ordinary. 3 on one day occurs. We could go many days without a takedown, but no correlation to these 3, no significance, if you will, that you can pull from having all 3 come down on the same day. And as a couple things that were alluded to earlier, there is a lot of ongoing work in New York City. There are cases that are going on right now that will be coming down in the near future throughout New York City with some of the partners that you see here and some of the partners that you do not. And this is just part of the ongoing process. As a smaller part, though, of when you look at where we winded up last year, 286,000 arrests, down from 422 from a high roughly about 8 years ago. And we're down about 10% in arrests this year as we continue to narrow that gap putting fewer and fewer people into the criminal justice system, but concentrating our resources on individuals that are driving crime. And I can assure you, and I can assure the general public, the fastest, swiftest way to draw the attention of the NYPD and get into trouble is pick up an illegal firearm in New York City.
Captain Anthony Guadagno.
Well, that's a tough one to spell.
Guadagno, CO of Brooklyn South County.
Any last questions?
Yeah. Chief Judge, can you just like sum up for everyone just the significance of these 3 takedowns? Just to wrap it up.
This is it's ongoing, and it's a culmination of what we've put in place the last few years, getting more and more strategic in how we operate. Somebody asked the question before about, are the individuals indicted? There is no more surprises in the NYPD landscape of doing a case and wondering what the charges are going to be. Part of the many conversations myself and Mark or representatives from other prosecutors' offices, how do we build smarter, more efficient cases that get better results and at the same time sacrifice nothing in terms of public safety for New York City residents? And you're seeing the proof. I couldn't be prouder. I know Bob Boyce before me would say the same thing of the work of the men and women that you see here today and that you don't see here today, that are on the front lines every day trying to make New York City safer. Thank you very much.